So let me first give you a Persian poem. I will not translate it for you, but I'll just give you the poem. It's really for my own soul. بگذشتین عمر تو دانی به چسان پوچ و پستون چنان باد دمان همه تقصیر من است اینو خودم میدانم که تفکر ننمودم روزی ساعتی یا آنی که چسان میگذرد عمر گران کودکی رفت به بازی به فراغت به نشاط فارغ از نیک و بد و مرگ و حیات. So I don't know how the educational system is right now in Iran, grades 1 to like 5 or 6 or 7, but at my time, we had to learn a poem, an entire poem every week, and we had to go in front of the classroom and recite it by heart. And just in case you couldn't, your teacher would first spank you, and then you had to go stand in a corner with one leg up for like an hour and 10 minutes. And then when the class was over, you'd be like limping home. And you know, it's one of those things when you're a kid and you're forced to do things, you say, well, this is really stupid. I don't even speak Arabic and yet I have to memorize like verses of the Quran or memorize poems. Then time passes. And then I find myself becoming interested in music, in philosophy. Then I find myself having a teacher. And then time passes and I realize, man, the stuff I memorized when I was like 5 or 6 or 7 now become handy. And I used to sing Persian, traditional. And so this is the outcome of, you know, having memorized all these poems, because we have to turn off the lights and then play music. And so if you haven't memorized the poem, then you have to keep the lights on and have your laptop open, you know, like my friend Kazim. So if I was to give you the translation of this poem, the short version would be that it's written by a guy, and I don't know who the poet is, it's unknown, who lived his life probably going to school, getting married, having a few kids. One day he looks at himself in the mirror and he realizes he's no longer young. You know, it's a very quiet form of repentance of sorts and regret. And it's not that you have lived a bad life, it's been a relatively good life, but you want to do something more with it before you pass. Only to realize that mentally you don't have the capacity or the energy, physically you're just exhausted. And so you just sit around, as Joseph Campbell used to say, people in general are just running around waiting to die, really. They're not doing anything significant from the moment you're born to the time you die. Except that when you get to be in your 60s or 70s or 80s, where your body begins to kind of betray you a little bit and your mind, you realize that, well, you know, ending your life, you can't do it voluntarily. It goes against your organism. So you just wait, you distract yourself, you know, you go to the garage. As we had a beautiful friend across the car wash in the 1985 all the way to 2000. His name was Gene. This strong, well-built mason. He would come to the car wash every single day, especially after his wife passed. I said, so Gene, what are you doing today? Well, I'm going to the garage and I'm going to sharpen my chisels. I'm going to fix my hammers. I said, well, why would you want to do that? You don't even use them anymore. He says, yeah, but you know, I used to be a mason for about like 40 years. And when you're young, you don't really understand this stuff. You get older, you realize that, well, if it wasn't for the chisels and the hammers, the guy would just, you know, sit in his chair and get depressed and probably end his life. So the chisels really made him survive. I suppose in trying to some extent, try to describe what true love is, I'm not claiming that I know, I'm just going to approach this particular topic in the way that Krishnamurti did. And for those of you who may not know who Krishnamurti is, around the 1960s and 70s, much earlier of course, he was lionized to be the Messiah of the 20th century. There was an organization that was built around him, the Theosophical Society, and their function was to kind of go around looking for the next Messiah. And so he was chosen as the Messiah at the age of 11. And he was put in a very controlled environment. And his diet was very specific. If, for example, he had a specific cup of water, you couldn't touch it because then your toxic energy would enter that cup and then he would touch it and then he would become contaminated. So it was extremely controlled. When he got to be about 30, he kind of gave a talk that no one has a monopoly on the truth. And no one can tell you what path you need to take in life to get to truth. It really depends on you, it depends on your passion, it depends to what you're actually receptive and whether or not, I suppose, you're lucky to go through certain life experiences. And if you're able to process those experiences. You know, some people do drugs and they have an experience and they drop back into their body and they really kind of transform their life. They start perhaps going to school, becoming a bit more serious, looking at money different, at their own bodies different, at their mind different, and it benefits them greatly. Some people do drugs, they have a wonderful experience, but eventually they go mad, and they can't really live a good lifestyle, and so it doesn't really end up well for them. I think the difference between someone like, I don't know, Krishnamurti and someone else was that Krishnamurti had an experience, and instead of becoming intoxicated or drunk with power, he came to realize that all these organizations or cults that are created to better human mind, human life, they don't really do much. What needs to happen is people have to kind of be inspired, and then that inspiration needs to be supported, and hopefully someone can figure out what they're good at and just pursue that. So Krishnamurti's approach to love was via negativa. I can't tell you what love is, but let me tell you what it's not. Now, there are lots of flaws in the way Krishnamurti would do business because he kind of dismisses human nature. The other aspect of Krishnamurti was that, you know, it's kind of like Elon Musk coming on TV saying money is not important. Well, yeah, it's not important if you have billions in your bank account. That women are not important. Yeah, it's not. You know, they're not important or necessary if you have like 50 million lining up to be next to you. And having children is wonderful. Yeah, it's great if you don't have to support them or be around them. So Krishnamurti was one of those fellows who lived a life of privilege. So most of the things that he said, for me at least, they're just useless. You know, because it doesn't speak to the common person who has to struggle to survive in a world that's enormously complicated. You know, there is this chess champion, I think he's number 2 or 3 in the world. He's Indian, his name is Prag, I think. And he sat with this new spiritual teacher whose name is Sadhguru. I don't know how many in this class have heard of this ridiculous guy. So this young 18-year-old chess champion looks at this old sage and asks him, what's the best approach to play chess? Because sometimes I become very anxious. And he says, well, playing chess is like being mad, isn't it? And then he goes on this rant about, you know, spiritual crisis and all this stuff. And I say to myself as I'm watching this ridiculous episode, say, really, this is an 18-year-old kid. You know, you play chess in a very competitive way, which means that anxiety is going to be normal. You know, and the truth is there are some very, 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 very normal and organic emotions you need to have inside you. Frustration is one of them. I mean, the moment you are born, you're frustrated to figure out what exactly you need to do with your life. This idea, like, you raise your hand, how do I overcome frustration? You can't. Life is complicated. You know, figure out the complications of life, understand it well, and hopefully you'll have power, at least a little bit of power over things that are relatively complicated. So, I think human life falls into two different stages. Initially, we live outside of ourselves. I don't know how to love myself. And even that particular concept when I'm young is stupid. Love myself, what the hell does that mean? You know, the idea of loving my past or loving my future and loving my experience, no. You just love the things outside of you. I love video games, I love pizza, I love my wife, I love my kids. And all these different shades of love, what they do for you is that they connect you to the things outside of you. You spend time, I mean, you have children, you know how that works. You know, you come home and you're exhausted, and you really want some time to yourself. You want to go into your bedroom and just close your eyes for 10 minutes. Your kid comes home, walks into the bedroom, looks at you and says, "Dad, can we go to the park?" You say, "Honey, can you please remove this virus from me?" And then your kid begins to cry, and all of a sudden guilt overcomes you. And you say, "Yeah, let's go to the park." So the things on the outside have a tremendous amount of power over you. They influence you, manipulate you, coerce you, exploit you. And then in the course of you pursuing your ambitions, all of which exist outside of you, you really begin to lose time, youth, vitality, energy. Can I tell you a story? So on Thursday, my mom called me, saying that one of our best friends that I have known for the past maybe 40 years, and we've been to his house maybe 1,000 times, we've played music over 1,000 times. Very kind and generous man. He's in his, I think 70s or late 70s. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer a couple of years ago. But the news was that his son, who was 49, a wife with 2 kids, he was on the plane coming back from somewhere, and he has a migraine headache. He's unable to see, he's unable to put the spoon in his mouth to feed himself, he's unable to walk. They rush him to the hospital, and they find a tumor in his brain. And so they operate, but it spread everywhere. And so he has stage 4 cancer, and they have given him 3 to 6 months. Now, he has his master's in anthropology, and he's gone to various countries, Egypt, one of them, trying to dig up some artifacts from thousands of years ago. A very wonderful husband, wonderful kid to his parents, wonderful father. So he has lived outside. Now you lay on your deathbed waiting for this cancer to eventually take your life, and you sit back. And your wife can't reach you. Your parents are grieving. You can't do much, but their grieving really is useless as well. You can't get yourself out of the bed because it's far too painful. You have to do chemo 5, 6 times a day. That in itself is painful. And once that process is done, you have to take these humongous pills that's going to cause your body to kind of pump a little bit. And so at a certain point, you realize you're losing basically everything, and you're forced to kind of review your life mentally to see what you've done, if it's been worth it. Now, he may be one of those temperaments where he's actually quite happy with the outcome of his life, that he said, I can, for the most part, die knowing that I've been a good son, a good husband, and a good father, and that's it. And maybe a few regrets here and there. If you happen to have a different kind of a temperament where you begin to reflect, and the problem with reflection is that it also comes with a good amount of doubt, skepticism about what you're doing and why you're doing them, whether or not they're relevant, meaningful, they have any substance.